If you haven't released a game before or in other ways been visible publicly, you probably aren't used to receiving negative comments or know how to handle negative player feedback. But if you release a game and it has been at least somewhat successful, you will receive negative comments and there is no way around it. In this video, I will go through how you should handle those negative comments and also how you can get better at receiving them. Hi, my name is Auro. I'm a full-time indie game developer, creator of Mortal Glory, and currently working on a game called Chambers of Devious Design. On top of that, I also make these weekly YouTube videos sharing my experiences to help you on your own game dev journey. Alright, let's start with the topic. If you are producing any kind of content and spreading it publicly, people will let you know what they think of that content, and as a byproduct, they will also sometimes let you know what they think of you. In my experience, the majority of comments are generally always positive. Maybe like 90% of all comments you get are positive. That then leaves the 10% that are negative. There are of course also neutral comments, and often many comments have both positive and negative things in them. But for the sake of making a point, I will just divide everything into either positive or negative. So 10% are negative, but of the 10%, the majority are negative in a reasonable way. Maybe they don't agree with how you have handled something, or they think you should be doing better in some regard or whatever. The point is that they have a valid reason for being negative. It might even be a petty reason, but you can see where they are coming from. I would say that these kinds of reasonable negative comments cover around 90% of all negative comments. That leaves the last 10% of negative comments that account for only 1% of all comments. These are the ones that exist just for spewing hate. They might even throw in some arguments, but it's often clear that their main motivator is just to make you feel bad, for whatever reason they might have for wanting that. In a few minutes I'll talk about how to react to these different types of negative comments. But so, 90% of all comments are positive and only 10% are negative, with a small portion of them being outright hateful. That's not too bad, right? The positive comments outweigh the negative by a very good margin. Well, that would be a comforting fact if it wasn't for a thing called negativity bias. So, what is that? Basically, it's the human tendency to register negative things with more intensity than positive things. In practice, this could mean that you can read 9 positive comments about you without much effect at all, but then when you read one negative comment of equal value, you will dwell on it and it will ruin your whole day. It's not always necessarily so dramatic, but you get the point. Negativity, unfortunately, has more influence than positivity. I don't know if all people have this, but at least I do, and based on many similar experiences I have read, a lot of other people have it too. To be able to handle negativity better, it's good to realize that this kind of thing exists, and realize that it can cause you to blow things out of proportion when you're encountering negativity or you are facing some kind of a setback. Okay, so now you know about negativity bias. How can you combat it or get rid of it? Well, if you do some Googling, you can find a lot of tips and topics about the subject. These can help, but the truth is that there really isn't an easy way to overcome it. Feelings are feelings after all. You can get better at handling your emotions, but you cannot outright block the negative feelings. The way most people get past it is by just encountering negative things, gaining experience in how to handle those situations, and thanks to that, also learning how to handle their own emotions better. Commonly, this is called growing a thicker skin. I know it's not the silver bullet solution that some of you might have hoped for, but at least personally, I feel like it's already helpful to realize that most people go through things like this and they experience them in the same way you do. After a little bit of discomfort, they get through it, and next time it's slightly less discomfort. This will be true for you also. Just accept the discomfort and realize that it's a normal, momentary thing. So, What should you do when you get a negative comment? The first thing you should do is deduce if the comment contains constructive criticism or if it's mostly just unconstructive hate. While it can be unpleasant, getting constructive criticism is actually a good thing, and you shouldn't dismiss it as it is important for your growth and it can help you steer your designs into a better direction. What you should also really internalize is that almost always constructive criticism is aimed at your game, not you as a developer or as a person. Your game is a piece of entertainment art that you put out there, and since people are expected to interact with it, they will also critique it. And when they do, you shouldn't take it personally. Whatever faults your game has, they are not faults in you as a person. Also, remember, no game is perfect. Many times the biggest fans of your game can have the most negative things to say about it. Maybe a bit of an over-exaggeration, but there's some truth to it. People rarely comment on things they don't care about. So the people who have a lot of negative things to say about your game are usually people who really like your game or at least want to like your game. But they are facing issues that are ruining their experience. It doesn't mean all your customers are facing these same issues, and it doesn't even mean that these issues are significant in the grand scale of things. But they are still issues that some of your customers face, and it is important for you to know about it. Whether or not you do something about them is then up to you. So, constructive criticism is actually a positive thing, even if it comes in a negative package. But if instead of constructive criticism, the comment is mostly just unconstructive hate, there's no redemption or silver lining in that. Just move on and try to put it out of your mind. People can spew hate for whatever reasons. Many times, hate is just people projecting outwards the discomfort they feel within themselves, whether they are having a bad day or they are not happy with where they are in life or a million other reasons. Often it's not even your game that is actually bothering them. Your game just happened to be the lightning rod that gave them an excuse to vent out their pent-up negative feelings. You don't know where they are coming from and why they are saying what they are saying, so it's usually best to just move on and try to ignore comments like this. And that's a good segue to, should you respond to negative comments? It depends. In the case of unconstructive hate, no, I don't think so. It's not likely you will be able to change how they are feeling at the moment, so replying to them is likely to just generate more negative feelings and poison your own mood. If the hate comment is on a public platform, visible to others also, you might be tempted to dunk on the hater, maybe with a clever comeback or something like that. This can score you internet points, but in most cases, I don't think it's worth it. The person who left the comment is likely to just start hating on you more and might even start actively bad-mouthing you and your game elsewhere. But if it's constructive criticism, it might be a good idea to respond. You still need to read the room, so to say, and consider what outcome is likely if you respond. With what you are about to say, can you turn some negatives into positives, or would you just make it worse? It really depends on the situation. Sometimes responding just leads into more arguing. But I have also had several situations where I have responded to negative comments, negative Steam reviews for example, and after talking to them for a while, they have changed their mind and turned that negative review into a positive review. Usually people soften up a bit when they realize that you are not a cold faceless company, but instead an actual human being who is treating them with respect. If you do respond, do just that. Respond respectfully. Sometimes you might be tempted to go in guns blazing and just focusing on proving the other person wrong. But I don't think that is ever the right solution. Act mature and don't stoop to anyone's level if they are being impolite. Then, should you give in to negative comments? As in, should you do what they are asking for? After all, usually the negative comments are asking for something or implying that something should be changed. Well, again, it depends. You definitely shouldn't change something just because someone is loudly demanding it. It is your game after all, and you know it the best. They might confidently shout out that something should be like this and something should be like that, but they don't know your game as well as you do. They don't know how easy something would be to change. They don't know what kinds of effects that change could have, and so on. You shouldn't give in to something just because someone is loudly demanding for it. But if you think about it and come to the conclusion that what they are asking for is actually very reasonable and you have the power to make that change, then sure, go and do the change. Everybody wins in that situation. Just realize that you cannot please everyone. Different people want different things. For example, my game, Mortal Glory, has received negative reviews claiming it's too hard, but it has also received negative reviews claiming it's too easy. Making the game easier would please the other person, but making it harder would please the other one. And you cannot do both. Likewise, in a DLC, I added a new character archetype, the Archer. Some people complained that it was overpowered and made the game easy mode, while some complained that it was weaker than the existing archetypes and thus pointless. It's hard to say what the objective truth is, and well, it doesn't actually even matter. Playing a game is a subjective experience. Different people will experience it differently, and they will have different expectations for it. Some will expect to get hundreds of hours of entertainment from your game, while others will expect it to entertain them for one evening. You shouldn't try to reach for a situation where your game is perfect and everyone is happy. That won't happen. It is impossible. Instead, try to reach for a situation where the game fulfills your own vision and where a reasonable amount of people are happy with it. And that's where I will end this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.